Welcome to this week in events for Friday, the 22nd of August. And this edition, in the team, we have Paul Richardson.
Hello.
And new this week is Mr. Paul Cook.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
No problem. A man who needs no introduction, so he won't be getting one. If you don't know who Paul Cook is by now, then where have you been? Anyway, so we got some great stories this week. Let's have a look. Festivals, data sharing, a major mess up for an event app involving AI, because we love talking about AI. So, should we start with Mr. Paul Cook?
I thought you might, actually. I don't know why I thought you might, but there we are. Yeah, the one that caught my eye this week was from Skiff Meetings. And Skiff Meetings, they do a great job of keeping us all up to date and what's going on, especially on the across the pond side of things in particular. And this one really caught my eye because it's all about the data sharing. And it's the headline was that Vendorlux are offering event organizers a free way to expand their targeted marketing outreach data, provided they share their own data in exchange. So why, you might ask, did this catch my eye? Well, simply because it's that tricky little subject of having your personal data provided to somebody else, to another company, without you really knowing about where it's going. So good for the organizers if they want to use that, but maybe not so good for people that are going to the event. And I just thought it did say that GDPR in Europe means that Europeans are going to be excluded from this. But even if they are, the crux of the issue for me is I'm going to register for an event, I'm going to go to that event, but then at the end of that, all of the attendees that I went along with, all of their details can be freely given under this data cooperative to another organizer. So I don't know what you guys think, but it kind of went, oh, a little bit to me, being how many scams are around and how much personal identity is so critical, because that's what we really have for this kind of activity under a cooperative to be taking place.
You know, when you accidentally respond or interact with a spam email, so they then know that it's an active email address, your details are then sold on to 100 different people. You're on the 100 mailing lists. Your spam increases. Is it like that all of a sudden your data's being traded with other companies, so you get more marketing messages? You signed up for more newsletters. You've not asked to be on it. You've not indicated your permission. So isn't that the same as spam?
Well, I think so. I mean, according to Skiff, they say that an organizer uploads their confirmed attendee list. So you've gone to their event, and in return, that organizer gets access to the same number of attendee profiles from similar events. So if you get you've got 1,000 names that you shared as the organizer, you as the organizer are going to get 1,000 profiles of people who attended similar events. So yeah, it just feels a little bit as far as I'm concerned.
Can I just ask there, Paul, then, in that sense, the organizer has to make that a declaration at the outset when you register for their events, that if you register to come to our event, your data will then be passed on to third parties. Because part of this is, it's almost like reading the terms and conditions, isn't it? When you come onto a page and you say, download this app, here's your 420 pages of terms and conditions. Do you agree? Scroll. Click, yes, I agree. And somewhere in there will be the small print that says, we reserve the right to hawk your data around the marketplace and sell your identity on. That I'm wondering how visible that's going to be to the attendees of these events, because there's an element there of subterfuge that may not be illegal, but it would smack of sharp practice.
Well, I think you've just nailed it on the head actually, because it was coming out of one of the several people jumped on this, various comments, and one of them was, well, who's got the data? And it turns out that yes, it is the registration companies, and they do have to put a message out or something in the T's and C's right at the very outset. But we both know, we all know that you go through and you just scroll to the end and tick because you want to register for that event. You want to get on as fast as you can. And if you, I'm not sure that there's always an option to say, I don't want to do that, but I still want to come to the event, because I'm seeing less and less of the option where even if you don't agree, you kind of have to agree, or else you just don't get in, or you don't get whatever the download is or whatever you're doing. So yeah, I don't know how prominent that would be, but I think people will be in for a rude awakening. Can you imagine you've got a CEO and his or her data is suddenly, at other events, and they're getting all sorts of other messages coming in from people that, all right, we expect it from this particular event, but why am I targeted on these things? So
it's also the question has to be raised. Is there a clean and clear separation between existing data that an organizer may own and new data that they're collecting, with the caveat in the T's and C's? Because I'm sure there will be, and I'm not suggesting for one moment that this would be all organizers, but somewhere in the camp there will be the fast and loose brigade who will think, well, I've got 10,000 records, I will exchange that for 10,000 new records in this data exchange. Who's doing the filtering job? Who's looking at each of those data records and saying, they agreed for us to share, they agreed for us to share, they agreed? Because even now there is, we are you happy for us to share this with third-party people who might provide? So they might be able to use that as a caveat. But does that mean that were you informed at the point of handing over your data that this would be in some kind of data exchange? That could be a really grey area. I think that for me would be one of the more troubling aspects. What happens to the existing data I've handed over, thinking it's secure within that reg company and that organizer?
Well, I think in addition to that, just rereading the article that came out, apparently this model allows organizers to control sharing. Vendorlux uses AI to enrich these high intent profiles with verified email addresses and LinkedIn information. So it looks as though they're not just using a list of, right, here's my name, here's my other stuff, but now something else is being curated out of information that is being, tracked across the web space. So we'll see.
So this is interesting that they're now also data scraping. Just to beef up the information that's being traded. Again, have you been asked to allow anybody to scrape your LinkedIn data or any other social network they want to put on to start, just to beef up what they are offering?
Well, I think that's right. I think you'll find that you might be signing away to say, yeah, my data can be shared with other companies, but I don't believe that I've seen anything yet that says you can take my data and you can also use your AI and go into my LinkedIn and have a good old look around there.
Well, then you're going to get to the bit where they're going to go, actually, have you seen what he's written about us on LinkedIn? No, he's not coming in. But this is one of the problems we've got is that the terms and conditions forever expand because there's more and more developments with privacy and how we deal with it. So it is one single tick box that seems to cover everything. We don't have this, it's not getting fine-grained. You can't say, well, I agree to this, but not that. And there's too much effort involved to separate out what people have allowed and not allowed. And as you said earlier, I mean, get to a point where there's only one tick box, and if you don't agree, you're not going in.
Yeah.
Can I just, another thought that just occurred to me on the one about the enrichment of data. AI whilst it's a value, and again, we bang on about AI ad nauseum on this this podcast, and its benefits and its shortcomings. But at the moment, if you look at any of the like the large language models, it quite clearly states at the bottom that, for example, this large language model will make mistakes and it does not guarantee that what it gives you back is 100% correct. Who's policing the enrichment data that says this data is correct, that Paul Richardson, I don't know, is a Tottenham Hotspur supporter, which I'm clearly not, because it's the wrong shaped ball for me. But when do I get to validate that, yes, that is right about me? So if it says I'm a Tottenham Hotspur supporter, I get all of the Tottenham merchandise crew sending me all that stuff through, and I suddenly wonder where on earth, who thinks I support Spurs? Because the AI is, Paul, it confuses you and I.
It does. It does. And I think it's it's good to kind of talk these things through, because I think you can read a headline and go, oh yeah, it's a good thing. Yeah, organizers growing because they got this. But if I was an organizer, before jumping onto any of this, I'd have to have a big think about what the implications were for me. And if I know that a registration company that I've contracted is doing this, I think I'd want that pulled out. I want that to be known to any attendee that's going to come along. And I'd also just ask the question as well as to how long are these respective parties holding this data for? Because under the GDPR rules, which protect most of Europe, not the UK anymore, you need to know how long they're kind of holding on to this data. And this could be sensitive data that goes across, all the kind of things that we talk about when we're looking at accessibility and health and menu choices and all of this. If it's all in one big pot and people making assumptions based on incorrect info or outdated, it's just fundamental. I think you have to be really careful with data, especially as there are so many scammers out there just ready to grab whatever they can from any kind of source. And this just kind of doubles up where your stuff could go.
Now you've set this particular hair running, Paul. You've also the pings are going off in the back of my mind. Hang on, what about?
Yeah,
I have the right to be forgotten under GDPR.
You do.
And under that law, who do I contact? Where in this chain of exchange of data? So I'm organizer X, I do an exchange into this database. Organizer Y then has my data, who then does a reciprocal exchange with somebody else. So my data is being handed on down and down and down the chain.
Yeah.
And I want to be forgotten. How do I follow that chain? Where is the point at which I say, in this one place, I stop? Or do I have to chase every single possible holder of my data that I don't know to say, please forget me?
That's right. You absolutely, you pinged another hair off, because actually you're right. If you don't know as the attendee, we know that we're going to a trade show, we're there for a reason, our data is scooped up, and then it gets sent off to someone that we don't know. How can we ever as individuals police it? So I think that's another good point as well. So it feels that this Vanilux, I'm sure they're very cool in what they're doing. I'm sure there's loads of stuff that we don't know from from behind the scenes. So just putting that out there so we don't all get sued. But by the same token, it does feel very one-sided for organizers or for data companies more so than attendees.
I think this segues nicely into something I discovered, something I saw on LinkedIn. Adrian Seagar posted, shared on Wednesday, an article from 404 Media. So Gamescon event app uses AI for matchmaking, and it happily went along matchmaking people. But it didn't tell anybody who was doing it. and it also confirmed the matches for meetings. Yeah, so AI is taking upon itself to arrange meetings between two parties. They didn't know about it, and on their behalf, confirmed that they would be attending the meeting. Is this AI gone too far? Is this something? Do we really need this now?
We exhibited at a show, and I won't name the show. And part of being involved in what we do, I have to say, I took my eye off that particular ball while I was busy doing stuff for other clients who were in the room with us. And there was a matchmaking service within the deal that you had with your stand. Now, I'm all in favor of that. I think that's a great idea in that it actually brings people to the stand who should be of interest to you. And my first surprise was at 11 o'clock, somebody, this delightful young lady turned up and stood in front of me and said, "Hello, I'm your 11 o'clock." which I thought was one hell of an introduction and the best way to throw me off my best game ever. Because I'd stood there and went, "Really?" And she said, "Oh, part of the matchmaking service." And then obviously penny drops, and so we disappeared off and had a cup of coffee and a chat, and everything was great. But 3 or 4 people in that day's matchmaking service, so it kind of pinged one in an hour. 3 or 4 people of those people said, "Yeah, I don't know why I'm sitting talking to you. It's just I was sent an email saying that we had a meeting to have a chat." And I'm sitting there thinking, right, well, I'll do my best to make this a worthwhile meeting for you because obviously somebody set this up for you. But I suspect there may have been something similar operating in the background that is auto matching people and then flinging out the meeting invites. What I understood later on when I queried this, because I'm never one to, somebody coming and sitting and talking, coming to see you at an exhibition. They may not be a direct customer who's going to hand over the cash, but they may be somebody who you might find has contacts, and conversation at an exhibition is never wasted. And these people might have been valuable, but I was curious to find out what happened. And what happened is your profile's put in there. People go into the matchmaking side as a visitor and say, "I'd like to talk to them." And the system then goes, right, okay, these are the gaps in their diaries, ping, 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 ping. Then it looks and says, "Oh, Paul's looking very sad. Only 3 people want to see him over 2 days. Let's fill his calendar with people." So it goes brum. And therefore I'm looking at it going, "Oh, I've got a full list of a full calendar of people." Now, as I say, to me, I don't think any conversation at a show's a wasted conversation. There's always something you can get out of it. So it's always worth doing that. But there's some people who've gone with a very specific selling operation in mind, or a very specific sign up, or whatever it may be their objectives are. To then suddenly find that 60% of their diary is filled with people who've no idea why they're coming to talk to them. That has got to be so infuriating, so frustrating. And rather than that improve the exhibiting experience, that's going to get people turning around. I'm not going to that show again because I met 42 people and 38 of them were pointless. So let's go to a different show. So the organizer's actually damaging their own model by trying to be overly helpful using tech.
What happens if you've turned up at the show? Say you're going to London Excel and you're traveling down, Paul, for one of your clients, right? Because that's the only time that you could be in the same vicinity. That's the only time you can all get together and actually have a face-to-face chat. So you're there for an hour, but is this AI matchmaking service booking you in from the moment the show opens to the moment the show closes? You only want to be there for an hour or two just to talk to people. You have particular meetings in mind, but then this automated service is just filling your day up. And you're going to have to go around, "No, I don't want to meet you. I don't want to do this." Is that happening?
Well, I think the other thing is that you wouldn't know that AI was used in making these appointments if again that's not obvious. If you're not told that some of these things are going to be generated for you by AI. I mean, we know on some of the hosted buyer appointments that those can be bad enough if the person that they go to see isn't there, or doesn't have the information they need or whatever. So adding this in, yeah, I can see how it would be useful for some organizers that want to use AI in this way. But I think if it was me, I would probably say, all right, let's just test it. Let's test this on a small sample and just do so many that are generated by AI with the consent of the attendees that are going to say, actually, we're going to use this on you. Is that okay? And then if that works and they get decent feedback, then maybe this is something that you could push out. But it doesn't. None of this takes into account the kind of well-being and the mental health and all the stuff that we bang on about, how we've got to look after each other in an industry, when a piece of tech is going to be saying, right, you can go from there to there to there to there to there. It's madness. It's madness. I mean, hosted buyers choose their appointments based on when they're going to be at the show, and if they got breaks between them. And all right, they might have to do 10 appointments a day, which seems a little bit on the upside anyway. But at least they've got a degree of control. If you take all of that control away, then all you're going to do, as the other Paul mentioned, is just annoy people intently. There's no other way of putting it.
So the previous thing we talked about, Rendeluxe, and now this AI matchmaking. Are we seeing a problem in the industry where we're no longer taking any notice of opt-in? Shouldn't we be saying, yes, please trade our data? Yes, please, I'm available for AI matchmaking for meetings.
I think there's probably, there might be that going on where people think, okay, yeah, got these AI tools, let's use them, let's see what we can do, let's do all these things. But it could be that people don't know what can be done on some of these AI applications anyway. I mean, that might be the other thing. But can you imagine if you've got a forced appointment with somebody that you don't like? They're a competitor. Suddenly you're sat there in front of them because we as human, we know who we want to go and see and who we don't, and who our competitors are. Unless the AI models are trained to that degree of specificity, that you could end up with appointments that are really horrific. I think there's a little bit too much potentially going on well, we've got to use AI for something, so quick, let's do this, without thinking it through as to whether this is helping or hindering your business.
Whilst we were just talking there, a very quick scan of my email inbox, looking for AI as a subject matter. And I am getting 3 to 4 emails a day offering and promoting AI tools that will undertake various tasks that will reduce my need to do half of the things that I do as a job. And I was just trying to think, as a director of a business, I have certain accountabilities and responsibilities that sit with me. How much of that am I abdicating now to AI across a number of things, data protection being one of them? And we have data processing agreements, data storage agreements to allow us to do our job. And we have signed those up with clients like we used to sign NDAs. The number of things you sign with the clients going up and up and up and up and up every year. And literally in the last 5 minutes, I've had one promoting to me I won't say too much because it will obviously then be obvious who it is, but there's a company talking about training to understand how to use AI to market events. So they're training people in how to use AI. My slight concern is how's that verified? How's it validated? If they sit down and use Vendelux and say, use this because this is the best way to market, you get to swap and exchange data, then have they gone through the logical process of what happens to this, and is it morally and ethically sound to do so, and is it legally okay to do so? How have they vetted the stuff that they're going to tell you? Or is this hey, everybody's selling AI, let's get on the bandwagon, let's do some training, let's get people on board and sell them a course on AI? And it because it's so new, and developing at such speed. I wonder what the veracity of some of their research in the background is to find the best tools that they're going to then promote and tell people how to do it.
It's going to be interesting to see that instead of AI becoming part of your marketing, look, we've got AI built into our product. Isn't it brilliant? We're going to see the opposite of that. And it's going to happen really soon. Going back to the 404 Media article about Gamescon and its app. At the top of the article, it says 404 Media is an independent website whose work is written, reported, and owned by human journalists. Now, to make a statement like that is saying, okay, everybody's using AI. Look, we're using humans.
But they're not using humans when they do a matching system that is completely AI driven.
Well, this is the 404 Media article about the app. So the journalist who's written that has put that at the top.
I've just spotted the piece from Skift that you picked up earlier has now been picked up in another email that I've got, which then refers me back to the Skift piece, which says Gamescon's AI tried to play matchmaker, but attendees weren't ready for a bot to book their meetings without asking. So this is now gaining some visibility. So it's the article you're talking about, but it is now starting to be shared out. So warnings are happening. People are starting to see this. So hopefully, people will treat it with an element of caution. It does worry me the kind of evangelical way that we jump on a new piece of tech and it's the great game changer. Now, I'm despite my youthful countenance, I've been around a bit. And I can remember how when the web arrived, the web was going to be the thing and events were going to stop because everybody do things on the web. And then we had virtual events, the first iteration, where everybody was going to have their own avatar and go to events, and events were going to cease to be. And then we had social media, and social media was going to be the way we're going to get with people, and that's going to And now we're in the latest, greatest iteration. But this is an iteration that I think has serious long-term implications, much more so than many of the previous technical advances.
Well, do you remember when we used to talk about virtual reality for sort of like group meetings in cyberspace, the various headsets, the augmented reality? It was all hailed as the great solution to make the event industry great. We stopped talking about it after 6 to 8 months. I'm not saying that's going to happen to AI, but I think we're going to start seeing it as something that helps in the back end, things that help you process and understand the world, as opposed to it's written 800-word article.
Well, if you want it to write an article and give it a word count, it doesn't always get it right. But that's a whole separate subject.
That's a whole new episode. That is, yeah.
I do wonder. I do wonder on the reason for flagging this whole thing about the data cooperative was so that we have this kind of discussion around some of these kind of issues. And the biggest one I see is people maybe not understanding that unless you advise it not to, all of this material ends up in some kind of training package somewhere that is used by all sorts of other people. And I think the frequency of having AI recorders that come on for meetings, well, that can be great. That can be very cool. It summarizes what you've done, what you've said, and all of that is great. But with the ability of hackers, I just wonder how secure any of this is anymore. It just seems to be a little Wild Westy, it feels to me.
We're both desperate to come into this, so you go first, Paul.
I was just going to say, the interesting point about your AI meeting things, we use one to augment the notes that we take manually. So we use it as a method of making sure we've captured everything.
Yeah.
Relying on them is, I would say, is fatally flawed.
Yeah.
We came out of a meeting with a client and they'd used one particular AI note taker. We'd used a different one. We compared the set of notes and they did not match, both in terms of content, sentiment, and some of the decisions that we'd agreed were different in each one. So it had interpreted them slightly differently. So use them by all means, but note caution, they are not perfect. They are error prone, and you need to cross-reference them against what you think those decisions were, because it caused us. And again, when we compared notes afterwards, because we thought we did this for a bit of a giggle. Hey, it's a good idea. Let's check, see whose works best. There's a bit of fun. So we look at it and then go, blimey, neither of them work best.
Yeah.
It is error prone.
Well, the times I've used it, it even gets the attribution of who the speaker was incorrect.
Yeah.
And if it does, and if two people are sort of speaking but not giving time for the person to finish properly, as I've probably done already during this time we're speaking, then it makes it look like the one person has said both things, even though it's two people saying those things. But we're really getting away from all this, what we started off with.
Back to a headline.
Let me just finish by saying I got a feeling that buried in the T's and C's that we mentioned earlier, where it says we're happy to trade your personal data whether you like it or not, will be we're going to use we're using AI, and everything you've ever said, done will be used to train, I'm using air quotes, our AI models. In other words, we're going to profit in a slightly different way from everything that you've done.
Sobering. Very sobering.
One last bit on AI for this week. I'm sure we can pile more in next week. Something that was pointed out to me by my colleague Bethany, looking at AI psychosis and the mental challenges and the mental health issues that are occurring, where chatbots and using LLMs to almost become a friend and create a self-validating friend, because it's not trained in any kind of analysis, and it doesn't analyze what you're saying. Hi, this person's depressed. You're putting into them, that person may be putting in very negative feedback, in very negative prompts into the LLM, and the LLM's going back and saying, hi, yeah, right, yes, you're right, you should jump off a bridge. It is the right thing to do. I mean, that's a very trite example, but that's where it leads to. And this has become self-fulfilling. And the use of chatbots and the millions of people are finding, or the medical profession is now reporting that people are spending hours on these tools and talking to it as if it's a friend. So they're getting some friendship validation from these things, and it's telling them that they're doing the right thing. Now, that's in a very personal level, but then does that also reflect in a business level? And when you go to an LLM and ask it for a marketing strategy or an operational plan, and it spits out an operational plan, and you go, great, that's brilliant, print it out, off we go, whoosh. Without that validation, without that understanding, it's quite, the reliance that we're placing on it now is huge. And this is at a personal level, and people get so invested in it, they can't then see the perils outside that. So it's kind of a creeping problem. So anyway, apart from storming the palaces and burning all of the data centers, it's something we're going to have to live with and try and work around.
I've said this before in other episodes. We'll get to a point where AI is absolutely everywhere. So in the morning, you've woken up, you're going to go and grab a coffee. You're going to have a massive argument with your toaster because it won't let you have any more Pop-Tarts.
I think it's coming.
Yeah, and then you'll feel so bad, you'll go back to the bedroom where another piece of AI starts talking to you and sort of calming you down, making you feel better. It's everywhere. Can we talk about something that's not AI? I think we've probably done enough on that.
When you said toaster, I just had visions of the conversations that Lister and Rimmer had with the toaster on Red Dwarf. That dates me a bit.
Well, no, I've actually got on to Google Gemini and said, please, can you pretend to be the toaster from Red Dwarf? And it started making all sorts of, I mean, obviously it's written content, but it was going bzz, beep, 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 no. And it just started talking like the toaster from Red Dwarf. It's really cool. Worrying, but cool. Anyway, let's not talk about AI anymore because I'm sure we probably. Let's do something.
Should we do something fun?
Please, Mr. Paul Richardson. Yes.
Fascinating article in Festival Insights this week. Well, it's a little bit older, and I know it's a bit naughty bringing something in that came in from the week a week previously, but I hadn't spotted it until this point. And it's pertinent because we're working on quite a few little independent festivals at the moment, and there's a rapid growth and a real success in hyperlocal and hyper-focused festivals. So these are sub 5,000 attendees in non-large commercial environments. So your non-Glastonbury's, your non-Downloads, your non-Sonispheres, all those, the big mass events. These are down to 1 day or 2 day festivals with a 5,000 audience. That's either when they talk about hyper-localized and they talk about aiming at about communities, they're talking about in it being a growth in marginalized and low income communities. But you're also, when you look at that, if you analyze the launch profiles of festivals coming out at the moment, the things that we've been working on are very niche music festivals. So they're going to max out about 5,000 people, and they're within a musical genre, or they're within a particular geographical area that services a particular market. So there was one in Cambridgeshire that we worked on that's neat, and there's one that was in Leicestershire that was music orientated, so one geographic based one. Highly successful, great feedback from attendees, really very positive, but very, very focused, very, very targeted. And it's interesting, the festivals markets followed the kind of business market, the build and grow, diversify, expand, bring in extra bits, extra whistles and bells, add things on bolt-on, until you get this behemoth of a festival. And the ones that are the most rapidly growing and more manageable, more successful are smaller, I'd say the hyper-localized to communities or geographies. So it's been a great news, but the community, whatever it may be, is the rationale for the festival existing and why it's successful. It's a great little piece. And they quite glibly term it the rise of the village fate. But when you talk about village being not a physical location per se, it can be, but it is the village being what's in your village. Your village might be people who like, I don't know, let's say folk rock. So there's a number of people who are aficionados who will, and you will have a maximum capacity, but you can build a vibrant, lively little festival just around that little niche.
So you could actually cross out the word village and just insert community, a community fate, which sounds really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's, not everybody can go to some of these bigger festivals. And personally, you get to a point where there are too many people going. So something that's a bit smaller and has a local feel feels right on the money. I mean, tomorrow I'm going to Rye, got a tennis match to play. And the people I'm going with said, "Oh, Rye Festival's on, so we're going to hang around for that in the afternoon." Sounds perfect to me, And I think you can get a lot out of these festivals in areas. The Whitby Folk Festival, great. It's you go into a pub, basically you've got somebody in there just playing an instrument or two, and you go along and walk, and you've got all sorts of stuff is going on, and it is very, the artistry is brilliant. So just somebody entertaining in a local area that you haven't been to can be really, really interesting. So I think with the amount of people that are not able to deal with big crowds and all sorts of other stuff that goes on associated with bigger festivals, I think these can be a great answer.
There's some good solutions out there for actually, because effectively all you need is just a large patch of ground, and you can get sort of like, there's that inflatable stage effectively from Evolution Dome. So you could just slap that in an empty field somewhere and whoosh, off you go. And it's not as though you have to rent an expensive venue or there's spaces available. So you just need something to stand on to entertain the crowds.
Yeah, I think as long as the councils don't get too crazy with their restrictions on, license fees and what you can and can't do, because some of them are a bit weirder than others, shall we say. I know this because I used to work in risk management some years ago, and they all vary. So if you've got a local council that gets it and understands it and wants to help the community, brilliant. Just go for it.
There's the flip side, which is they're not strict enough. So there's huge problems. North London is Finsbury Park, and they have massive music festival. It's surrounded by housing estates, is tube stations, there's bus services. It's a very busy area. And this park is right in the middle of it. So when you've got it finishing at 11 o'clock at night, there's hundreds of thousands of people milling around, there's fights. People are still surprised that the council is allowing it to happen. There's not greater restrictions. But not only that, it ruins the park. I'm so glad I don't live there anymore. But anyway, that's the thing. It goes two ways, isn't it? It goes either far too many restrictions, so you have a problem actually organising anything, or there's not enough restrictions and it ruins it for everybody in the surrounding areas.
It's difficult, isn't it, to know where to go with it.
But I think if it's community led, it's going to be more convincing for the council or the owner of the land that you wish to use.
Yeah, again when you're talking about the community, it's how you define community, because is the community the people live there, or is it the people with the shared interest, and the two may not necessarily be compatible. So if you've got let's say a piece of land in an urban development, and you want to put on a death metal, thrash metal event that's going to run from 5 p.m. Friday through the night until all day and night until Sunday at 10 p.m., you might find a bit of local resistance when what they really want is a string quartet on a Sunday afternoon, and you've got somebody screaming into a mic, hammering on a guitar. So there's elements of that it's again suitability, isn't it? It's kind of say, if you're going to put your thrash metal on, right, find somewhere where the sound won't carry to a community, another community that might, because we've got to think it's overlapping communities, it's the interlock, nobody's in isolation, so you've got to consider all of those people, and you can't ride roughshod over people. But the localized stuff, I think Paul touched on it. Yeah. The lovely thing about it is the ability to access it for people who may not be comfortable in large, overwhelming environments. Like, and I mean, we just use Glastonbury as an example. It's huge, it's massive, and some people will not be comfortable in that environment. Whereas a small event where you can actually leave and come back in. So if you need to go out and have a quiet time just to have a reset, you can do that. You could go into the local town or whatever it may be, village that's next to it, and go and have a cup of coffee and have a sit in the quiet away from everything, and recompose, get yourself back to a point where you're going to go back in and enjoy it. I couldn't imagine. I'm not particularly keen on crowds and being in confined spaces. So, and my worst nightmare will be to be in the middle of the Glastonbury crowd in front of the main stage. That, I think, I've never really been truly claustrophobic, but that might just be the thing that tips me over the edge. I small festivals, great. I love. It's just a lovely piece of news, because it's. Also, I mean, cracky. Where do you play if you're an aspiring artist in Glastonbury? How are you on some peripheral? Yeah. Well, no, are you on a peripheral stage 10 miles away that nobody's prepared to walk to? Play your local place, have everybody rave about you. That's got to be a nice, good feeling, isn't it? You're not going to, it's not going to be millions in sales, but at least you've got.
Yeah. No, you're
what
you did right, especially with the the exit routes. I don't know about you, but I went to Glastonbury some many years ago, and at that point I was younger, and it was like, okay, this is it. I now look at the pictures of it today, and obviously it's expanded a lot, but you couldn't pay me to go there because it wouldn't be right for me. But that's just a personal thing. But yeah, if we are mindful of people, it's about understanding that not everybody is wired the same way, and we're all kind of, we've all got our own quirks and differences, and that's what makes this good. And I think, to your point about taking time out of an event and going back into it, I think that's so important, because we're not wired, are we, to be at something full on day after day. Doesn't make any sense. It's not the way we function. But not all event organizers see it that way. So, but yeah, I love it. It's lovely and creative, and it's good to see this stuff going on. And if that helps people in the right way, then let's do more.
Yeah. Small is beautiful, I think, is is what I take from this. And I think it's great to see a little bit of positive news like that that's talking quite about a niche, about something that you can look at and go, yeah, I could buy into that. That's great.
What a great way to finish up. And on a positive note from the Three Grumpy Men podcast. Yeah.
Well, we've kicked AI to death for most of it, so I thought it was worth having a bit of cheerful news at the beginning.
At the end, yeah, that's cool. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time on an early Friday.
No problem. It's
pleasure.
Been a blast. Yeah, really good.
Really enjoyed it.
And if anybody would like to listen to a full-blown podcast series by Three Grumpy Men, then please get in touch. Otherwise, thank you for listening. Thank you guys for your participation, Paul and Paul. And
thanks, Bob.
And let's do it again next week.
Yeah, thank you kindly.
Look forward to that. See you next week. And cut.
This Week in Events is a production for the EPN Journal podcast. Huge thanks to our patrons, partners and industry friends for helping to make this possible. Details of how you can be a patron are in the show notes and on the EPN Journal website. Thanks for listening.